Listen up, you guys. So today we're going to talk about what I think is the greatest rushing performance of all time. Now, of course, there's different circumstances, and you may feel differently. And of course, I'm not just going to look at just stats, because Adrian Peterson, he ran for 296. Jamal Lewis, he ran for 295. So, of course, there have been better rushing days in NFL history. But when you put everything together about what happened in this game, to me, there is no other game that even comes close. So I'm talking about Corey Dillon. What he did back in the year 2000 in Week 8 versus the Denver Broncos was absolutely outstanding. Now, Corey Dillon, of course, he played JUCO ball his first 2 years in college. That's junior college football, if you didn't know. He also went to the University of Washington. And in one game at Washington, he rushed for 222 yards, caught a 83-yard TD pass in the first quarter. The first quarter. That's 305 all-purpose yards in one quarter. And yes, that is an NCAA record. And of course, he goes on to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals, before Chad Johnson and Carson Palmer and all those guys got there, they were trash. Really trash. And Corey Dillon was really the only show in town. So, I mean, if you're a genius like me, there's only one option. You put 8 to 9 guys in the box, and you dare Cincinnati to find another way to beat you. Now, Corey Dillon was one of those running backs that you could put 8 or 9 guys in the box, and he would definitely find a way to get his yards. Definitely find a way to put the Cincinnati Bengals in a spot to win most games. However, this season, things weren't really working out that way, because the Bengals, they were 0-6. And so far in this season, Corey Dillon, through those 6 games, only ran for 100 yards one time. Not to mention the fact that he was also playing with second-year quarterback and one of the biggest busts in NFL history in Achilles Smith. Now, I don't want to make this video about Achilles Smith, but it's kind of hard not to because he was so terrible, okay? Now, Corey Dillon, he was somebody that would rush for over 10,000 yards in his career. Matter of fact, he's top 20 all-time in that category. He's also somebody that would win a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. So Cincinnati was probably thinking, if we just get this man a quarterback, he could do work, and he could carry us all the way to the Super Bowl. Now, I know we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, and that might be far-fetched, but let's just go with it, okay? Now, Cincinnati had a backup quarterback by the name of Scott Mitchell. Scott Mitchell, he played for the Miami Dolphins. When Dan Marino got hurt, Scott Mitchell played pretty well, got a fat contract by the Detroit Lions. He's also in the top 10 worst free agent signings list of all time. That should tell you how Detroit fans feel about Scott Mitchell. Cincinnati, that's your backup quarterback. Alright, so we established the fact that Corey Dillon is a stud and that the quarterback situation in Cincinnati was pretty awful, right? But now let's talk about the Denver Broncos. This Denver Broncos team came into this game at 4-3. So far this season, they only allowed a 100-yard rusher one time. Matter of fact, they were only averaging 65 yards per game on the ground for their opponents. That's pretty solid. On top of that, this is the same Denver Broncos team that will go to the wild card round of the playoffs and lose to the eventual Super Bowl champion, Baltimore Ravens. So, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't have thought that Corey Dillon would have broke the record for most rushing yards in a single game versus that defense on that day, but that's exactly what he did. You see, the record was held by Walter Payton. Walter Payton, he ran for 275 yards versus the Minnesota Vikings back in the day, but he did it on 40 carries. That gives him an average of 6.8 yards per carry. Now, I'm not hating on 6 yards per carry. That's pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's basically 7 yards per carry if you want to just round it up and give Walter Payton some love. But at the end of the day, Corey Dillon, he did it on 12.3 yards per carry. You see, Walter Payton broke the record on 40 carries. Corey Dillon, he broke the record on 22 carries. Now, listen up, you guys. We all got to give credit where credit is due. And Adrian Peterson, he does hold a record for most rushing yards in a single game at 296. He did it on 30 carries, which gives him an average of 9 yards per carry. Jamal Lewis, who broke the record when Corey Dillon had the record, he ran the ball 30 times for 295 yards, and again, 9.8 yards per carry. Not as impressive of the 12.3 yards that Corey Dillon put up on the Denver Broncos. However, that's not why this is so impressive. So earlier we talked about the quarterbacks for the Cincinnati Bengals, and we have to do it again because this is what makes Corey Dillon's day that much more impressive than anybody else's day when they set an NFL record or put up well over 250 yards in one game. You see, Scott Mitchell, he played in this game, but he went 0 for 5 in the game, and he managed to get sacked one time. In the NFL, if you get sacked for negative yards, which of course the sack is for negative yards, they take away some of your passing yards for that sack. Achilles Smith, he was 2 for 9 in that game. So the two quarterbacks combined for 2 for 14. 2 for 14. What makes that worse is that Achilles Smith was sacked as well. So they were both sacked one time in the game each. That's 2 sacks for a grand total of 20 yards. Those 2 passes that Achilles Smith threw went for 34 yards. So 34 minus 20 in the box score will show you that they threw for a combined 14 yards in the NFL game. In that NFL game, they threw for 14 yards. 14 yards in one game. And not only did Corey Dillon set the NFL record on 12 yards per carry, on half of the carries that it took Walter Payton to break the record originally, but they also won the game with 2 quarterbacks combining for 14 yards and 0 TDs.